Thanks for tuning in to the Marvel Movie Minute.
Want to skip those pesky ads and get early access?
Become a member at truestory.fm/join and discover all the other great perks that come with it.
Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a weekly podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 5 minutes at a time. In this, our 9th season, we're looking at Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I'm Matthew Fox.
I'm Kyle Olson.
And today we're talking about minutes 86 through 90, which begins with Cap feeling guilty about Bucky and ends with Pierce wanting to use Bucky's brain as an Etch-a-Sketch. Kyle, what's kind of your overall take on these minutes?
We're into some heavy plot stuff now, and I guess we're into there's some twists and surprises, and then we get to see kind of how people are interacting, and then they find out they've been lied to or brainwashed or manipulated, and we also have some karmic injustice that we're going to have to discuss as one of the corporate overlords has overlorded over one of the people who appears in these scenes, and we'll talk about that too.
Definitely. And we start out with Cap feeling guilty, and I really like this scene for 2 reasons. One is that I think it's very true to Cap that, his first feeling is, oh my gosh, I let Bucky, be captured. This is all on me. Like, the guy fell 200 feet into a ravine. The train you were on was still going, and there was stuff you had to do on that train. There was no way you were going to stop it, but of course Cap feels that guilt. And then Natasha, though, he's not saying that. He's saying just about what happened, and Natasha's able to cut through it immediately and go, no, dude, this is not your fault. Like, you need to not feel this guilt. And I really like that character beat for both of them.
Yeah, I like her saying that, even though I think she knows that that's not going to matter. Like, it's good that she says it, but yeah, Cap's going to be like, yeah, cool, I'll just shoulder that as well.
Yeah. Now, I am making you feel like you have to stop making me feel guilty. And yeah, having been in many relationships with another oppressive, I know how this works.
yeah, but it's a nice beat, and also the fact that Sam is really the odd man out in this whole thing, just kind of going, yeah, I don't know what anyone's talking about, but I'm also here.
Well, and it turns out though there's someone in the back of that van who doesn't know who Sam is, although
that's right.
Presumably he's had some experience of him by now. Maria Hill. We get this fun moment where they're starting to debate, like, do we do something? And then all of a sudden, one of the what seemed to be like S.H.I.E.L.D/Hydra agents is charging a taser and then uses the taser on the other guard, makes a joke about the helmet being too tight. Look at it. It's Maria Hill.
Yeah. Sam is asking for medical help, and then this guard pulls out one of the stun rods as if they're going to like shock him into submission, and then turns around, hits the other guard. Boom, Maria Hill. So then they talked Maria Hill a lot when she first showed up in Avengers. She's a Brian Bendis created character. She's one of my favorites. I think Kobe Smulders is fantastic. And justice for Hill, because I hope that she has a Nick Fury style surprise reappearance in the MCU in the future.
Yeah, I've not seen Secret Wars, but I understand that she does not survive to the end of it. So
yeah, Secret Invasion. Yeah,
Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because unfortunately, Secret Wars is a thing that's coming. So
yeah,
we don't know when people are listening to this, so we need to be clear.
No important thing there. And so
yeah, she's great.
We have season done a deep dive on Maria Hill, right?
I think they did it back during when she first showed up in Avengers. So I didn't want to sort of cover any grounds that they had done back then. But yeah, she's a character created by Brian Michael Bendis, and she has been sort of the this position. She's already been like sort of Nick's right hand. She's run S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while. She's been a covert ops run for a while, and she's all around great. No powers, just like kind of like even below sort of Black Widow in terms of things. She's just skilled.
And am I right that she is generally like she doesn't push back against Nick? Like she maybe doesn't. We don't necessarily know if she's morally jaded the way that he is, but she certainly is. She's not like his conscience. She's not Jiminy Cricket. She's just like, okay, yes, boss, let's get it done.
Yeah, she's the Girl Friday. She's the the right hand. Like whatever you need done, yeah, I'll do that. And she's not the one to challenge what he's doing, but more the one to make sure that it gets done right.
And we'll have a fun moment about that in just a few minutes. But before we get there, last thing I just want to ask about her is, do we have a history with her of her kind of showing up like, guard number 3 turns out to be Maria Hill? Is that like a thing with her, or is that just like it works in this movie? I'm just wondering if that's kind of a callback in some way.
No. There have been a couple things where she has sort of run some covert ops groups, some different. There actually was a secret war, as opposed to secret wars, that she was running point on, getting people into like stealth suits and things. But no, this was a sort of movie invention. This was not like an homage, as far as I can remember, at least.
So we get to the point where the van is parked. Our friends from Hydra are going ready to go get it. I do want to point out that he says 3 holes, start digging.
Yeah.
And
yes.
literally no one goes to start digging a hole.
No.
No
And also, they're in the middle of the city. Like where do you think these holes are going to be dug?
I don't get it. It seemed like, I wondered if that line was like an artifact for when it was maybe going to be shot in a different location or something. But either way, but then of course what they find out is that once again, a S.H.I.E.L.D. member has escaped from a car using the cut a hole in the bottom and then cut a hole in the ground.
The not quite lightsaber, yeah.
I have some questions because I think the van was moving most of the time that this was happening.
Yes, that was my thought as well. It's like we see the hole cut in the bottom of the vehicle. We don't see underneath that. So were they the last one in the in the line? So did this happen just after they stopped? They're like, okay, go. And then they cut a hole and then cut in the ground like the same way Nick did. Or was it like they cut the hole and dropped to the ground and then the vehicle convoy kept going on? I don't know. It was unclear.
And so, fair enough. We then cut back to where they've gone, which is apparently to some secret sort of hospital unit where it turns out, surprise, surprise, Nick Fury is still alive.
That's right. This is shot at Lakeview Cemetery. It's a 12316 Euclid Avenue. It's not far from University Circle in Cleveland. It is the resting place of Harvey Pekar, who's you can see a movie about called American Splendor, Elliot Ness, who you can see in The Untouchables, and President James Garfield, who had a recent miniseries on Netflix called Death by Lightning, which was highly underrated. You should look for that. Also, if you're interested in comic books and Elliot Ness and Brian Michael Bendis, well, have I got a story for you. There's a comic book called Torso, which it tells the true story of how Elliot Ness helped stop one of the first American documented serial killers. Based on a true story, and it's a really good indie comic, which we're going to be talking about indie comics and their importance a little bit later too. But this is where this particular thing was shot, and we also see then another cameo, Joe Russo as Dr. Fine.
Oh, okay.
Comes running down there to do that. Yeah.
The Russo brothers.
Yeah, I assume that Dr. Fine is Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard, like a Three Stooges homage, but I don't really know that for sure.
And so anyway, we learned that Fury is still alive. I don't know if you remember your feelings the first time you watched this movie, but do you remember, was this a surprise to you?
It was. I really thought that they were sort of going for broke with this movie, that they really were not pulling punches. And they're like, oh, wow, this is a way to have him exit the thing. And then when he shows up and says, about damn time, I was like, oh, Nick, you got me again.
Yeah. And this was definitely, I think, one for me where the meta conversation was a part of it as well, because at this time, the MCU was still not something that serious actors were really spending much time with, unless they kind of needed to rehabilitate their career, like RDJ or even, some of the others had been like, okay, well, it's time, maybe like I need to get remembered again. And Samuel L. Jackson was a very big, he had been in the Star Wars movies, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He had been in a lot of more serious stuff, like he was in a couple of Spike Lee movies that he was incredible in. He was a working actor with a lot of great stuff on his pedigree, that I remember kind of being like, he's not going to stick around for long. And so, I don't, maybe the 9-movie deal had been announced and I just didn't know about it, or it hadn't happened yet. But certainly I definitely thought like, okay, yeah, Samuel Jackson was not going to stick around too long. This is a good movie for him to kind of go out in a blaze of glory. So I was definitely surprised, but I thought the way they set it all up worked.
Yeah, because it did seem like he was sort of had done his thing and then was handing it off. I mean, for any other sort of franchise player, that's a pretty good way to go. Like, that you've done all this stuff and then you sort of hand off, and now you have someone to avenge as they go to go into the final battle. But nope, Nick fooled us all one more time, and he actually is still alive and still sort of pulling some strings.
Yeah, very much so. And so he says pointedly, because Cap says, why did you let us think you were dead? And he said, I didn't know who to trust. And what's being made clear there is that he trusts Hill, he trusts Dr. Fine, and maybe it's just those two, maybe there's one or two others involved in this little base thing that know. But clearly he doesn't trust Natasha and he doesn't trust Cap.
Yeah.
And it got me wondering, we know that after the first attempt on Fury's life, he goes to Cap's apartment, he has that conversation, and then it is at Cap's apartment that he's shot. And so clearly he's expecting to be another assassination attempt. He has this drug on him. Do you think that this conversation where Cap honestly pushes back on him some and is kind of, not from the Hydra perspective, but I think from a like, no, even you are a little bit like Cap is just still kind of goody two shoes boy. Do you think if that conversation had gone differently, then Nick would have brought him into the inner circle sooner?
Yeah, I think that was sort of his plan when he went there. Like, I think he went to what he thought of as a safe place, which is right next to America's ass, like right next to like the super soldier, like probably the most trustworthy person he knows, in a time that he didn't know who he could trust. I think there is in Nick's head, there was a version where he started forming whatever this group to stop this around Cap, as opposed to being shot through the wall by Winter Soldier and then having to do this whole super clandestine operation.
Now, I don't remember, and I don't know if I think if you was our deep dive person, but if you didn't do this, don't worry about it. The Dr. Fine who's here, is he one of the doctors who operates on Nick when we see him in surgery?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he is in that operating room too. So I think that's what we're supposed to make that connection to see, to go, oh, okay, it wasn't there. So I guess by the rules we established last time, this would not be a cameo because it's in two different scenes.
Yeah. But that makes sense. And I think that was often my question is, how did they fool the doctors? But if that doctor's in on it from the beginning, then that makes total sense.
Yeah, or at least like, maybe he has on his contact list, like Nick says, if I get shot, this is the doctor to call because this doctor knows to administer the, let's see, what is the tetrodotoxin B, which apparently we found out was developed by Bruce Banner to slow all the metabolic processes in the body. It didn't work to stop the Hulk, but it does make you appear dead. So it was one of the things that he looks like he did, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. went, I think we could find a use for that. And so Nick probably literally kept it in his back pocket.
Okay, so Nick didn't have to apply it to himself in Cap's apartment because he knew Dr. Fine would, but clearly still, I think he knew this was one of his last conversations to have. And the fact that he goes to Cap and not to Natasha, I think also makes sense because I think, he's probably a lot more doubtful about whether Natasha would be on his side.
Yeah, or even if she found out sort of which, I'm trying to remember what the line is from one of the earlier movies where she says, I'm Russian, like I sort of see which way the wind is blowing, like to see like if she saw this was coming, did he believe that she would do like the heroic thing, or did she think she would do the thing to save herself, Yeah, like it's still that there's still that trust. And I like the way they shot that scene too, where as he's talking about it, you can trust, they immediately cut to Natasha and you can see just for a second that hit. Like that she was like, huh, okay. Like she's like, kind of, now I know where I stand.
Yeah. When she'd already asked Cap about like, do you think I would have been the good person in that situation? So clearly, that's something that's on her mind quite a lot. Do you think Rumlow went to Natasha at some point and had kind of a like initial feeling out? Because I have to wonder if I'm someone else in S.H.I.E.L.D., if I don't know her well, but I've probably worked with her some, I do know that she has this reputation of being pretty morally gray and willing to cut corners and willing to do what Fury says. Do you think that they just realized that she wouldn't go along with this? Do you think that maybe they did like an initial conversation and she never really noticed, or even that like maybe they told her enough that she should have figured it out, but she was still in that like, not my problem. I'm not going to worry about this, and she's not going to tell anyone for that reason.
Yeah, I think there was probably a meeting. Like there was probably like a like conversation amongst the Hydra people, and maybe even with Zola involved about like running the numbers to see what it was, because we see later on that Pierce does have a sort of contingency plan against Natasha, thinking that he has her number. But I think by the time you get to the point where she's standing next to Grand Central Station in the circle with all the guys fighting alien invasion, between Cap and Hawkeye and stuff, I think they pretty much know, like, oh yeah, this person is never going to go for like
that's fair.
Mass murder on this side.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. So after that, we cut to Bucky himself, and I think this is it's a bit tropey, but I think it really works. That up until now, it feels like Bucky has always been the object. Bucky has always been the antagonist. We are seeing him. We're never seeing things from his POV. And now we get to switch to that. And I think it's because now, if you do that too soon, you give away the secret. There's no way to go to his POV without showing you who he is. And I guess the idea is, now that everyone knows, now that it's been revealed, now we cut to him. And we get kind of like some flashes to how Zola created him. It's all very quick. It's all kind of like implying rather than showing.
Yeah, and as you're saying, actually from his POV, like we see literally the first time he sees his new hand.
Right, and he hears Zola, and they talk about more operations and stuff like that. And he clearly is not. He's not Bucky, but he's not as Winter Soldier as he's supposed to be. What did you kind of how did you kind of take all of this?
I thought it was a nice quick way of sort of catching up, as opposed to having a whole extended flashback sequence, a sort of pseudo Frankenstein thing where you get to see him, his first mission out, or any of that, or that any actual torture happening, because this is still a Marvel PG-13 movie. We get to see just sort of the stump of the arm, and then like we hear the saw going towards it, and then they cut away immediately, because we're not going to get into that body horror type stuff. But it was good to directly connect the dots. So like, just in case you guys were paying attention, like here's exactly what it was, like from Cap, train, fall, and so anybody who didn't get the Bucky, who the hell's Bucky thing, now we get to see, like, back in the 1940s, in that sort of Joe Johnston's, sort of 1940s lens or whatever it is, like that sort of different style, and then all the way through up to catching up to now, and then seeing him literally frozen until they need him again.
And they talk about thawing him out and what that means and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I really love the way they play this, because on the one hand, they show that, like I said, he's not reacting the way a normal person would. Pierce slaps him across the face, and there's nothing. He doesn't look ashamed. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look hurt. It's just nothing. And he asks about Steve. He said, who was that man on the bridge? Why do I remember him? And I hadn't even thought about that before, but it's right that Steve is on a bridge in that scene we just saw a few minutes ago. But of course, also, when Bucky is blown off, he sees Steve as the guy on the bridge, yelling out to him. And I love that. And then we get the idea that he, even now, when he's not supposed to remember things, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, you tell me, but it feels like we're supposed to know that he is somewhat morally involved in the things he's doing, because Pierce says, your work has been a gift to mankind. We need you to do this again to help Hydra make the world free.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do that.
He's literally giving him the pitch. Like, he's giving him, it's like the whole, like, hey, we're gonna make the world a better place, and you're a vital part. You're a team player. You're on the road to promotion. Like, it's you're Team Hydra, right? Bring it in.
You don't do that to the Manchurian Candidate. You don't do that to someone where there's a complete personality thing. So what was kind of your feel on that, on this idea of, like, he's so gone, but still, even Pierce knows you need to convince him that this is the thing to do.
Yeah, 'cause it shows that he's not a robot. Like, he's not someone they just, like, they program in to go down thing. Like, because he's having these conversations, he's probably had a similar conversation like this before, like multiple times when they've brought him out, having to be, like, talk to him like as a human being because there's still something there. It's not just something it's not a drone that you just go out and do this. Because as you were talking about him, when he slaps him and has no reaction, and he does the pitch, and Bucky's not even listening to it. Like, it goes from like, who was the man on the bridge? And then like slaps him and does the whole pitch, and he's like, but I remember him. Like, and so it's like, he's still like, yeah, okay, sure, say the better place. But who was that guy? Because he seems like he's really important to me. And it was sort of the moment of them like, oh, we try to get this stuff out of him, but it's still down deep. And so we get to see then a little bit of the man inside the monster.
Yeah. And for me, and this is obviously like writing in later, it actually helped me feel better about a scene from a project that happens much later, both in the timeline and in the MCU production timeline. Which is, I don't know if you have seen it recently or remember it much, but Falcon the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Because in that, one of the running plot lines is that he feels deeply guilty about the things that the Winter Soldier did. And I remember at the time we had kind of a discussion of, we wanted to know more about why. Because if it really was like his body did those things, but it was a completely different personality to which Bucky Barnes has no connection, then no, it doesn't seem like he should feel any culpability. It was like just his body was kidnapped. If, though, he was pretty solidly brainwashed, but there's still enough of something in there that was making an active decision to go along with Hydra, no, I don't think he's legally culpable. No, I don't think he is 90% morally culpable. But it makes me understand why the Bucky of that point might still have enough of a connection to the person who got convinced by Pierce, that would help to me to understand why he feels some moral guilt and stuff like that. And so I have no idea if they were thinking of this particular line when they wrote that scene for Winter Soldier and Falcon, or Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I was like, oh, okay, that makes me better understand what happens down the road. That it's not a complete break between Bucky and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it seems like, because of the way he's talking to him, that it is definitely that he is a soldier who is now having to follow orders. Like, they sort of brought that back, that he is now a part of a different army, but he's still a soldier doing the things. He's the Winter Soldier, but the part of that is soldier. Like, he is still continuing on to do this. And I think that maybe is the part where Zola's stuff gets in of sort of, yeah, you're still following orders. You're still doing things. You're still helping the world just like you were before. You're just, working for a different unit now.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the part that is there, but still continuing on. The person he was, all of his training, all of his patriotism, all of his like belief in doing the right thing, they just changed what the right thing is in his head. But I think it's still as opposed to like a walking bomb, like it really is that he was because if you're out in the field and having to do all of these things and make these decisions and choose to shoot through someone, you have to be a full person, not just a Terminator like unstoppable force. Like, you have to be able to improvise. You have to be able to think on your feet. We know that he's not like a covert operative like Natasha is, where she could just like infiltrate things. But he can. He has a different set of skills, but he needs to be a human being in order to do the things that they want him to do.
Yeah, for sure.
This scene in there with all the cool bank, like clearly their bank vault. This is actually shot in the Cleveland Trust building at the southeast corner of East 9th Street and Euclid Avenue. Euclid Avenue again. So you could just, if you're taking the tour of Cap, you could just go down the street from the cemetery to here. But this is not the first time this has been used in MCU production. This same building was used in The Avengers, where they shot the whole bank scene where like Cap does a thing where he jumps up for the person and like launches out the window. This is the same same building that they used for that. As Pierce is walking in, there's two scientists there. So one guy in the bow tie and the other guy with not a bow tie, but dressed similarly. The first one is scientist number 1 is what his credit is. And that's Pat Healy, born in Chicago. So shout out to the Windy City. He has 120 credits on IMDb, prominent roles in Better Call Saul and Station 19. And then scientist number 2 is Ed Brubaker. And for those of you who have been paying attention, Ed Brubaker is the creator of the Winter Soldier. He was writing Captain America at the time and had this idea of bringing back Bucky and doing this whole thing. And so they, as sort of like a, wink, nod, and also like as a, point of the thing to bring him in. And he actually got to be on set and do that. And as we'll see, as we roll into the next one, he's the one actually that, puts the machine on and actually to wipe it off. But he's a great writer. I mean, he's still out there, still working and stuff. Interestingly, he's one of the people who worked prominently for Marvel and DC and now doesn't because of things like this. Like, he essentially created Winter Soldier. They took it and then did this. He found out that they were doing a Winter Soldier movie the same day that we did.
Oh my God.
When they announced it, and he's like, oh, cool, they're doing my story. All right, neat. And he's, there was a podcast he did with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, where he says that he made more money from this cameo than he did writing for Marvel, creating the Winter Soldier.
So ridiculous.
So for this role and the residuals he gets from it, more than he actually did creating Winter Soldier. And then add that, because you work for hire, nothing that's done with Winter Soldier, he doesn't get a dime from that.
Right.
And he's not being, slightly bitter, but also like, hey, I created this thing that now you've made hundreds of millions of dollars off this stuff off of, and I get a special thanks in the credit.
I mean, remember,
cool.
That is terrible. It is also, unfortunately, by no means unique to the comic book industry.
No, not at all.
Pretty early on, after creating the character of Batman, Kane, I forget their names. It's something Kane and something else.
Bob Kane and Bill Finger.
Bill Finger,
are the two ones who are the.
I think they sold it within like 2 years or so, and I've since never seen a dime, and not even like any kind of residual, not even any credit. And it was, I think, when like the Michael Keaton era of movies that then became Val Kilmer and all the rest, some kind of lawsuit was brought. I think both those men were long dead by that point, but by their estates. And at least now, every Batman product always has, based on the creation of so and so, in the same way that every Superman does. And I think their family did get like some piece of residuals, but
and Siegel and Schuster too. There has been a couple of sort of like off the record sort of like thank you checks written, and Jim Starlin has talked about this with Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff too, but never anything like formal. Like every time a character shows up, they're not legally required to put up the who created the character or any of that, or give them any money, just because that's how good Disney's lawyers are, and Warner Brothers too. Like I said, not a unique story, but something that still is a continual source of of resentment. And this is how you lose great creators. Like he did all this stuff for both things, and now you don't get to use, you don't get to do this stuff anymore because, this is, you burn them out and then just get somebody else in to do the job. Okay, if that's how you want to run an operation.
Yeah.
But like I said, he's still out there, still making comics, and still actually doing some stuff in Hollywood. He's currently on the latest Batman animated series. I would say if you want to support Ed Brubaker, he has a bunch of independent comics out, including Criminal, which will soon be a television series. And he is now directly involved in that as well. And scientist number 1, Pat Healy, is going to be in that series. So maybe on the two of them on set, like maybe they hit it off so much that when he was putting it together, went like, hey, want to come be in this thing too? So I don't know where that's going to be, but there's a big IMDb page for it. So it's out there somewhere. But yeah, so I would say if you want to support any of these guys, try and find the independent work that they did, because that money, more of that goes to them. If you go right now and buy the hardcover omnibus of Winter Soldier, Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting and any of the guys who worked on it, they don't see a dime from that. It all goes to the mouse.
Very much so. Very much so. Well, and let's actually close on that, because I'm glad you brought up the comic books, because so the last couple seconds are, they first say like I didn't quite understand it, so maybe I want to help you. I want you to help us understand. There's something that Pierce wants them to do, and they're like, no, he's been out too long. And then he says, okay, then just, wipe him again. And I'm curious. So first, I'm like, if you can walk us through what's actually happening there, but then also tell us like how much does this or does this not represent what's in the comics?
Yeah, my thought was that essentially if they have him out too long, that he kind of like the Bucky in him becomes stronger. Like they like maybe the conditioning, is not as all inclusive as we think. Like, but he comes out, he sort of is still in that disoriented state of like they can just say, okay, you have to do this. He has his skills, but not his memories and things. And obviously, he doesn't remember in his previous missions from mission to mission at this point. So
clearly, they want him to generate missions while he's out, so that if he attempts to kill someone on Monday, he remembers that enough to learn how to better kill them on Wednesday. So yeah, I could see that. Like, if the memory circuits are allowed to work there, that's how they could start getting jarred again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like an internal thaw. Like the longer he's out and the longer he's doing stuff, then the more humanity is coming out. And so this is why they kind of probably have a timer, like, essentially like they have a thing that says after a certain point, then he gets unstable, which is like he starts to remember that he's an American soldier who doesn't want to be out killing all these people. And so they have to then put him back on the ice and then reset. And it seems like the reset is much more dangerous maybe at this point because they don't really want to do it. So I guess what they're going to do here is going to erase all the stuff he's done in the last couple of days and sort of reset him back to zero when he comes out of the ice coffin, like back to there. So he won't remember any of the fight that he's just had. So all the things that he's learned and changed, like about catching the shield and all that stuff, will all be back to zero. So when he sees him again, they're hoping then there'll be no memory of like there's no Steve Bucky connection. But it also then makes him less effective because he doesn't have what he just learned about the people that he's going after. And this is very similar in the comics. In the comic there's much more. It gets much more comic booky because the cosmic cube is involved, and so there's sort of a mystical like the sciencey thing that they use to remove his memory and things, and Red Skull's involved and Russians and all that stuff. But it's very similar in terms of like going into ice, coming back out, resetting, and then going back out. But enough that, but movie wise, like it's sort of like the Manchurian Candidate was a good pull in this that idea.
And of course, this is all science fiction. Like the idea is supposed to be that this is a technology that we don't quite have in our real world. And in the same way, like, you don't want to know the exact energy output of a phaser on Star Trek. Like, because the whole point
Right.
is supposed to be, it's not supposed to be. And every time something like Star Trek or Star Wars tries to get technical, it's like, don't tell us there's a scientific explanation, because then we can question the science. And so I think having this all be a little hand-wavy, it conveys clearly what's meant. It's that, they are trying to figure out how to prevent Bucky from reasserting himself into the Winter Soldier. So, yeah.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about like the sort of design of it too, because I love how janky all of this is. Like this thing that they have built is not a super slick chrome, like what we saw even when Captain America becomes Captain America, like that, even that whole style. Everything looks very kludgy. It's very like thrown together, like they just threw it in the back of a truck and then they have to run it from place to place. And I like that, the messiness of it.
And one thing that I think is, again, a really smart thing to do, and also I think shows how much they were now starting to think of this as a franchise that really was going to carry on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this, and a lot of the things that I think of in terms of how you activate how you activate the Winter Soldier, we actually learn about in the third Captain America movie, Civil War. Because when, the reading out of the names and the numbers and the words and stuff like that in a weird order, that Zemo digs all that up, So, and I think there was something smart about, like, leave something on the table. Like, they show you enough to understand this movie, but yeah, they don't give you the full flashback, which allows Civil War, which I think is by the same guys, right? The Russo brothers?
Yeah. Same writers.
And,
it's the Russo brothers and the same writers as well.
And so I don't honestly know if like they had the whole idea and then they just decided let's leave some of that because we'll come back to it in a later movie, or they just were like, later movie. Well, we left ourselves a lot of room to play. Let's see. But either way,
I mean, it's smart because we don't see him. We don't have the awaken the hush casket moment of this. Like we don't see Bucky like coming out even in silhouette or whatever too. He's already out and doing stuff. So there's a bunch of that we don't know. And we don't know that we don't know it. Like, we don't know. So assumingly, by what we know now, all that has happened. They bring him out, they thaw him out, and then they run the words, and then he's sort of reset and then back, ready to comply. But we didn't see that here, but assumingly it happened off screen.
And kind of in some ways, the more detail you give now, the more of a box you're putting them into for Civil War. So,
yes.
Cool.
Yeah, and also we have the assumption that there is only one Winter Soldier, but turns out
there's a bunch more. There's a spring soldier, there's a summer soldier, there's like a false autumn soldier, all the things. All right, well, it's been a great conversation. Kyle, any of the last tidbits or trivia you wanted to make sure we mentioned today?
No, I think I got through all the things I want, so I think it'll be interesting as we get to see the Bucky that we've already learned about. Now he's back to where he was before, and what will that mean when they meet up again? Plus, schemes are happening in the next one. So Cap is about to make a big swing.
So many schemes. What's going to happen? Well, Kyle, where can people find you if they want to learn about what schemes you are plotting in other parts of the internet world?
I'm part of a little show called Craftin' Chaos, craftinchaos.fun. We are on a hiatus at the moment, but that means that you have plenty of episodes to catch up on. It's about making art when it seems like everything is terrible, and we get into some really silly shenanigans over there. It is a lot of fun, and our own Pete Wright is a part of that as well. So if you like his voice, and why wouldn't you, you can hear more of him over there.
Nice. Yeah, definitely all worth checking out. I, of course, am the Ethical Panda, and you can check out my podcast, Superhero Ethics and Star Wars Generations podcast. I will mention that Spider-Man Noir is now out, and I have an episode that will be coming up, I think, next week. It'll be coming up in mid-June. So depending on when this episode airs, either check it out or put it on a list to go back and check out. Had a lot of fun talking about that show with Will Freeland of the Hype is My Superpower podcast, who's been a guest on this podcast. So all the lines connect. Of course, check out other things that Pete Wright does. You can find all of his writings. I'm about halfway through his first sci-fi novel, Lattice, which is going to launch a number of other books. I'm really enjoying it, really recommend it to others. And you can find all his writings. And I think it's thisispete.com or it'll be
I think it's Pete.com. Yeah, but
it'll be in the show notes.
If you look for Pete D. Wright on Amazon, you'll find his book.
Yeah, and it's Wright, WRIGHT. And then, of course, go to True Story FM, and you'll find all three of us and Rob Tabasco and all the various podcasts that we are on. So on behalf of myself and Kyle and Pete and Rob and all the great people here at True Story, thank you all so much for listening. May the Force be with you. Let's go, Knicks!
Enough said.